Hello, everyone. I'm donning my fan. It's still hot here in the Middle East. Welcome to the Teach Middle East podcast. Today I have Nick Hart with me on the podcast. He is the principal of Horizon English School in Dubai. See, I didn't make the error. I was there practicing with Nick offline, going, do not say the wrong name. I won't even call the other name. But Horizon English School Dubai, and we are on the podcast today to talk all things leadership. Nick has been prolific in writing about leadership. I read his stuff on his blog, which, by the way, you should go and check out. It's mrnickhart.com, and you can read all the stuff he posts there, or you can follow him on LinkedIn. I like to read stuff on leadership, especially from people who sit in the seat and understand what it takes to actually lead a school in somewhere like Dubai, which is highly dynamic. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for, by the way, your contributions at the Middle East School Leadership Conference. Really, I was looking back at the highlights and I was like, yeah, that was a really nice workshop. I really, really wished I could have sat in it. But on event days, I'm like running around like I have no sense.
I was only mildly offended that you came to the door and then walked away. So no one, next time.
So sorry. Anyway, leadership. So I know you weren't, I know you probably were leading your parents when you were in nappies, but let's not start there. Let's start with your journey into education. How did you get to the seat in which you now sit? So take us back a bit.
Yeah. So all through school, I had one priority, which was to play as much football as possible. So any decisions around studying or subjects or even university degree was all around how can I play more football. So I ended up doing a sports science degree with Brunel in London, with no intention other than play for the football team, Brunel, and try and get a job and try and work in high level sport. But there was a moment with the careers office, I think in my second year of studying, where I went along and asked them, you get the standard meeting, don't you, about careers when you're nearing the end of a degree. And at the time, the advice from them was you can, they listened to my kind of wishes of trying to get into high level sport. And they said, well, you can go and find any job that you can with organizations like the Football Association, that kind of thing, and just get your way in as whatever level as possible. Or you can go work in a gym. But I thought, okay, didn't need to do 2-3 years of university to go work in a gym. And they said, or you can teach. So at the time I was also playing football semi-professionally. And I thought, okay, I want to be able to play football evenings and weekends. So I was looking for then a job that is 9 till 3 every day. And nobody corrected me. Nobody said, actually, that's not what teaching's like. But so I ended up in the short term being a teaching assistant for a term, and then I did the graduate teacher program to study whilst teaching, and then did the usual, worked through some various middle leadership positions, leading maths, English, science, PE, and then assistant head, deputy head, and head teacher in England for a couple of years. And then Dubai came calling.
Dubai came calling. How did it call? What happened? What led to you leaving your home in England to sunny Dubai?
It's a funny story because wanted to, for a long time, wanted to live and work out here. But timing was never quite right. So we needed to time it to do with kind of career and kids' studies as well. So we came on holiday here. Maybe it must have been 3 or 4 years ago, and I wanted to know what it was like, what schools were like in Dubai, because I'd never, although having visited Dubai, I'd never seen a school. So I used my social media network, and the deputy head here at Horizon, Martin, we had been talking over Twitter as it was then, and I asked, can I come and visit? So came to visit the school, loved the school, met lots of lovely people. And I remember going back thinking, I don't just want to work in Dubai. I want to work at Horizon English School. But at the time, there was no vacancy. There was no possibility for leading the school. And then, as luck would have it, Ian, the previous principal, moved into a director of education role, and then the Horizon principal job came up, and got a phone call, and uh, various things went in motion, and here I am, the principal of the school that I visited, hoping that I would be able to lead one day, and I actually am. It's great.
See how good that is. It's almost like the manifestation malarkey that I talk about sometimes. But I think it does work sometimes. I'm not sending anyone out there to close their eyes and try to imagine yourself sitting in a principal's desk if you haven't done the work. I'm sure Nick did all the work because he rose through the different ranks and levels and had the experience. But what's the experience been like now that you've got the job? What has it been at Horizon?
It is comfortably the best school that I've worked in and led. It's incredible. It has a reputation of being a great school in Dubai, but I'm increasingly of the opinion that globally Horizon should stand up there with some of the best schools in the world. The quality of education that we provide, the employee experience, parent experience, it's a dream job. It really is a dream job.
I don't want to linger on this because I want to talk leadership, but you said something there. You said it should be among the top schools in the world. Give me some specifics, like what makes it such a standout school?
So, I mean, lots of schools have high academic achievement. So you take that as given that the achievement is there. I mean, it's hard to compare Horizon with all through schools because we're a primary school and you don't have the GCSE and the A level or the equivalents to compare for academic achievement. But children attain really well. The standardized test scores of various year groups are great, but attainment achievement is, lots of schools do that, but lots of schools also do it in a way that is maybe unsustainable um, or leads to kind of burnout. So the way that we've managed to have high academic achievement, but also have incredibly happy children and incredibly happy parents is really special. The When people visit Horizon, they talk about the culture, they talk about the connection, they talk about the community feeling, and lots of people say those things, but the the the, the backing it up with uh, kind of evidence around what parents say in our annual survey, which is when we look at net promoter score, is top top 10% of organizations in the world. Same with the voice of the employee. When we look at the net promoter score for voice of the employee, our scores are through the roof. You can look at maybe top 5% of organizations, employers, not just in education, across all sorts of industries. The scores are incredibly high, and I think that's down to the way that we work, that we prioritize flourishing and happiness because that is the route to high academic achievement. It's not the short route, but it is the sustainable and morally correct route to do that. So I'm really grateful for my predecessors in terms of setting that foundation, and I've been glad to be able to take it on a little bit further and nudge it a little bit higher in terms of all those outcomes. It really is a special place.
Brilliant. I've heard of is Martin Cole still there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, is he your deputy? I wasn't sure because I've kind of lost touch after but quick question.
Mm.
Blogging.
Yes.
What led to that and when did it start?
You know, you might remember. So back in, I think it was 2011, something like that. The London riots were happening, and this is a strange place to start
Right, with my home. So that's so funny because I'm from Tottenham. Don't try it, Nick. What are you trying to say? I'm joking. Go on.
I remember back then, trying to find out what was happening like in the world because the news, like you know how biased news things is, and that back then Twitter was just taking off, I think, and I remember signing up to Twitter to find out some different perspectives on what was happening, and then I quickly found out that beyond finding out about what's happened in the London riots, there was a pocket of Twitter to do with educationists who were talking about um, talking about education in a way that I hadn't really experienced before. So when I was a teacher and maybe an emerging middle leader, I only ever spoke to the teachers in the school and the leaders in the school about teaching and about kind of emerging leadership. And then I realized there's a whole other world of people actually talking about evidence and research and ideas that I wasn't really um, exposed to. So then I started kind of delving a little bit deeper into the education side of Twitter, and then started contributing. And I thought, okay, I see some other people who are kind of writing blogs. Let's just make one and see what happens. And so I started just writing um, to basically think. So I was using it to write down ideas and capture them, and to share what we're doing in my school at the time. And it kind of grew and grew. And then I realized actually this is a good way of learning. Like, so I realized that when I write something down and I try and put it into a format that is understandable to other people, it made me understand it better. And I almost realized what I think about something by writing it, communicating it, and sharing it. So for me, it's what it's turned into is a bit of self accountability for learning, for processing thoughts and ideas and turning them into something that is hopefully clear, communicable, and helpful for other people. Because if nobody else reads it, I have found so much value in writing it in the first place. So for me, blogging is figuring out what I know and being able to communicate it clearly.
Yeah, I do write a lot as well. And I do encourage educators to write. But now with AI, people are writing less and less. And it really worries me, especially as a former teacher of languages. I am very worried for, the coming generations, that their lack of skill in processing thoughts, putting them on paper, making them coherent, and communicating their point of view effectively. I'm very worried. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, sometimes LinkedIn has become a bit of a strange world where you can quite clearly see AI generated posts and then AI generated responses to that. It's like nobody's actually thinking. And there are lots and lots of exceptions to that, but it's too easy. It's too easy to put a prompt into an AI, and get it to create content for you. But it's that for me, it's not about content. It's about thinking. You you do the thinking in order to get the result. If you kind of take away the thinking, what have you got? You've got kind of an empty shell of nonsense thoughts that just get posted there for the content rather than to try and actually contribute or to clarify our own thinking. Is really is a risk, and something that I think we'll have to figure out over the next couple of years is to try and maintain the thought processes that really go into good leadership and not outsource it to AI.
Yeah, but I think we'll come full circle. I don't think we'll come full circle quickly, but I think eventually people will get so saturated and so fed up with the garbage, not the garbage. Fine, I'll say garbage, that AI spits out at you sometimes. And then once you get to that point, once you hit that saturation point, you will then start to look for quality among the things that you read. And eventually will become very adept at spotting what's authentic and what isn't authentic. Um, It'll take us a little while, but we'll get there, I think, eventually. But what's your writing process? Like, how do you start? Because a lot of times teachers ask me, how do I start to do this whole writing thing that you do on LinkedIn or that I used to do on Twitter and on my blog? How do you start your process and how do you carry it through?
Usually there's some sort of stimulus. So it might be a conversation with someone. It might be something that we're talking about at school. It might be something I've read. It might be um, you know, a study or someone else's work. And then I think I need to. So quite often what happens is I'll I'll try and translate something that I've seen or read into like a slide on that leadership handbook that I curate. So the starting point is me trying to represent what I'm learning or thinking about in a form, in a graphic organizer kind of form that I think then is useful. Um, and then after that, I'd use that to elaborate. So the process tends to be find out something interesting, turn it into diagrammatic or graphic organizer form, and then use that to elaborate and write something so I can kind of get into the model a little bit and into the framework to make sure I can communicate something clearly. Because I find that school leaders, the ones that can communicate ideas really clearly are typically the ones that are successful. And if we can't explain our thinking behind something, if we can't justify our reasons for asking people to do stuff, then they quickly kind of fall away and easily lose credibility. So yeah, the it's the graphic organizer section that is probably invisible to a lot of people, because I try and represent it first and then write something that elaborates on it.
Yeah. Apart from your own personal benefits of writing, have you had any external benefits that's come to you as a result of putting your work out there?
Yeah, so I get various inquiries through the blog to do training days at in England, multi-academy trusts, or conferences. And actually, one of my books was because of a blog post. So one of a publisher saw a post I'd written and asked me to elaborate and turn it into a book, which is great. And I think um, I have I have social media and blogging to thank. So a lot of that has contributed to the situations I found myself in as a leader, where opportunities have come my way. So you said at the beginning, the hard work goes in, but then if you're generous and you share, hopefully it comes back as well. So that's been my approach, is to freely share things, because it may come back around one day, and I can and that's great.
Yeah. So you write a lot about leadership, and I talk a lot about leadership, just because I'm a student of the subject. It's because sometimes, I can see where I did it really, really wrong. It's weird because I left school leadership in 2018, and now that I'm looking from the outside in, sometimes I feel like a tinge. I'm very very open. I feel a bit ashamed of some of the foolishness I did. I really like. I'm thinking. I mean, luckily for me, some of my colleagues, they still reach out, my former teachers and stuff from my school. They're gracious. They haven't kind of excommunicated me completely. But I look back at some of the ways I did things that now I would not have done. Um, and I wondered, and you've written something about how the industrial models no longer suit what we are trying to achieve now as it relates to leadership. So, talk me through how leadership, in your view, especially school leadership, has changed and evolved over the years or over the decades.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a general pattern that when people started writing and thinking about leadership, it's come out of what the dominant organizations and models were. And so in that industrial area, when post-industrialization, when there's lots of factory work and lots of organizations working in that way of simple cause and effect or production line style kind of organizations, then leadership was about um, pressing buttons to get the outcome that you want. It was pull that lever, get that thing. It's and sadly, I mean, sadly now, I mean, the approach to people in that way, people don't work like that. And production lines may work like that, but people don't work like that. And so when we're progressing out of an industrial era into this knowledge era of complexity and the kind of free, quick sharing of information, those models of command and control, or a heroic white man in a blue suit, middle aged, that's not what leaders look like, and that's not what leaders do. Um, the the shift is towards complexity. The conditions that we work in schools are nothing like those industrial models. There's a beautiful complexity about a school where hundreds of people interact every day in ways that we can't predict, in ways that we can't control, in ways that we can't imagine. And so the shift in leadership is about understanding those conditions, I think, and creating those interactions, because those interactions are the things that enable the emergence of solutions to problems, or to innovations in how we teach. And therefore, our job isn't command and control. It's to understand the conditions and encourage interactions for people who are closest to problems to solve them. One of my pet peeves is schools that dictate how teachers teach. And one thing I like to talk about is how we shouldn't be aiming for consistency, because consistency is everyone doing the same thing. We should be aiming for coherence, where we've got aligned values and aligned ways of working, but teachers have to adapt what they're doing to the children in front of them. You can have two classes right next to each other teaching the same curriculum to the same age children, but the approach needs to be entirely different because the children are different, because the teacher is different, and therefore the interactions are. So that pet peeve is one that I try to make sure that we don't do. We're not going to tell you exactly how to teach. We'll help you to identify the problems that you're experiencing, and we all experience problems and have to solve them day by day. But our job as leaders is to try and help people to interact in a way that solves those problems, and we find a way to get the most out of every interaction with children in the classroom, rather than following a cookie cutter kind of set of routines or structures, which sadly does happen in a lot of places.
The cookie cutter,
Mm.
is that there because that level of consistency is easier to measure?
Yes. And it's arguably a quicker way to success. If you've got chaos, or I say chaos in a in a manner that explains, says the kind of lack of structure. So some schools are in chaos because they don't have systems, they don't have routines, they don't have expectations. And if you need to, if you're in a school that needs what David Carter talks about, rescuing and putting systems in, that's the easiest way to do it. It's the quickest, safest, actually the most common sense way of leading a school that is in crisis, is you make people do the same thing that you know at some point will give you a starting point. So there is an argument for that as a leadership strategy for a particular situation, in times of crisis, in times of where stability is needed. But you can't do in crisis management and stability for a long period of time. Eventually it settles and they need something else. So there is a time and a place for it, but it's not a long-term sustainable approach.
I get that. But the argument is that the consistency helps to meet the standards stipulated by the regulatory authorities so that you can then attain the rating, which then means that you can then raise your fees and do all the bits and attract the parents. How do we counter that, Nick?
And that's a frustration with the regulation system, and it's good that it's changing. That the regulation system that we have had in Dubai for the last few years in our relatively immature school system is that, and the regulation system is that way to quickly raise standards. But when you talk to school leaders about, and I'm sure you do, about their experience of inspection and regulation, then it's not easy. It's a lot of kind of uh, time bound, time pressured, numerical based things to chase, rather than doing the work that in our hearts we know is right for a community and a group of children. So in some ways it's a bit of a privilege to have a good grading in order to step away from the treadmill and step away from the conveyor belt that's required to get to a certain stage. So I completely understand why it is an approach in some places, but I suppose the leadership angle is we need to know when to change the approach and to be brave enough to do it. And if we get that opportunity as a school leader, then I think we should take it with both hands.
Yeah, I love to make analogies, and I think you're very right. You know, the kind of force that is needed to push an aircraft off the ground is not the same that is needed to take it and smooth it out at certain altitudes. And I get that we might need those structures and that sort of consistency in place. But when you get to a certain altitude, we can work for coherence in leadership, and it can be smooth with the occasional bumps because, there are air pockets everywhere.
Actually,
But
yeah, I mean, you're ready to jump back into crisis mode at some point because you could lose 40% of your teachers in which through normal international transience and attrition, in which case you can't then do the same things you'd always do. We're kind of in international schools, we are at the mercy a little bit of transient teachers because if you're teaching kind of profile changes, you can almost have to start again. And this I've had this problem a couple of times in England where you get to a certain point with teachers and their training, and then for whatever reason they move on, and you almost starting again with new people. And to recognize that is an important part of leadership and to act accordingly.
yeah, let's change gears a bit. Debunk the myth for me. Hierarchical leadership means strength, and relational leadership could potentially mean weakness. Debunk that myth.
Yeah, see where that comes from. So we are conditioned to think that hierarchy, person in charge, strength, and we're conditioned to probably think that relational leadership may be cozy and warm and non-challenging and non-judgmental, for example. But when we talk about relational leadership, it's got the language of it. I don't think it's helpful. So you hear the word relational and you think, okay, relationships, you think warm, caring, that kind of thing. But actually, relational leadership is more um, the encouragement of interactions between people. And what we can do is take the best of both. Do you need hierarchical leadership? Yes, you need someone who is accountable for something happening. Simon Canby, our group CEO, talks about someone, you have to have someone to catch the ball. At the end of the day, you could pass it around, but someone has to catch it. And the so we do need that. People need clear roles, responsibilities. But one of our responsibilities is interactions. So we can have you can go about relational leadership and be all about interactions, but have no substance. So you could get people being really nice to each other. You can get people being kind. You can get people being really nice to be around. And one of the problems with that, which are kind of used to illustrate the point, is that is weakness. So when it's only nice, when it's only kind, that's a problem. I remember I had a team of teachers once who, if there were three Miss Honeys all in one year group. So they were all lovely people, so kind, so nice, so nurturing. Their children loved them, the parents loved them. But when you put them together in a year group and um, they talk about teaching, they were all too nice to challenge each other and say, I don't think that should happen. I think we should do it like this. So they would sit in their team meeting and they would and they would share their planning, and they'd think, and I know that they'd be thinking, I don't quite like how that's done. I think we should do it differently. And they'd all go away, make the changes that night, all of them doing the same thing, and then not say anything to each other. They're tripling their workload, and yet they're still they're burning themselves out to make the changes that they all know should happen, but they didn't want to say it to each other. And that's where relational leadership can in that myth be weakness, because we need good relationships, but rooted in substance. You need people who are experts in their jobs, like they were, but to be able to challenge, to be able to feel like, yes, I can say to this person that I like this bit, but my class needs something different. I think we should do something else, without feeling like they're going to offend someone, and have the trust and the mechanisms to be able to do that, which then raises standards. So although they had, in this example, they had good interactions on a personal level, they didn't have good interactions on a professional level. And that's part of our job if we're going to attempt to lead relationally, is to make sure we've got expert people, but set up the systems to be able to challenge and to have good conversations about the substance of what they're doing, so that the standard rises. And I think that's a really good way, a sustainable long-term way of raising standards, is getting teachers to talk more and getting leaders to talk more about the substance of what they do, creating a situation where they are challenging and setting up systems to make it work so that the bar rises over a period of time. And then before you know it, the standards have risen over 6 months, and then 6 months later, and habits change. So the strength doesn't come from having a person telling them what to do in a hierarchical model. The strength comes from the interactions that people have that enable great conversations, great learning, and therefore great teaching.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I know that that could be a myth. So yeah, well done in debunking that. But my other question is, there is a little bit of a complaint around this region, in particular in the UAE, about inexperienced leaders being promoted too quickly, rising way too fast, and not being able to handle the nuances and challenges that school leadership brings. And I wanted to find out, apart from years of experience, which not everyone will have, what are some traits of a good leader, particularly a good school leader?
I think it's good to differentiate between experience and expertise, because you can be a 20-year veteran of leadership, but you could do the same year 20 times. But you could also be a leader for 2 or 3 years and learn an incredible amount of kind of leadership approach or strategy in that time, and be a more effective leader. So for me, it's not necessarily expertise. It's not experience that matters. It's expertise that matters. But um, what does a successful leader look like? So I've got opinions here that are very much rooted in some of the work done at Ambition Institute in England, where for me, fundamentally, if you have any chance of being a successful leader, you have to know a lot of stuff. You've got to know so much about curriculum, uh, pedagogy, assessment, safeguarding, health and safety, and increase it in Dubai, in an international school, the market, the marketing side of things, the admission side, the growth side. You have to know so much, because decision making without a basis of knowledge is just on a whim. The way that we make decisions, I think, sets leaders apart. So Neil Gilbride does some really interesting stuff on leadership decision making and our ability to appreciate the complexity. And I think there's a real fruitful area of leadership development where Neil talks about ego development, ego being the place in our psyche where the outside world and the inside world collide, and we make sense of the complexity around us. And what Neil talks about in his research is that for years we thought perhaps that ego develops up until adulthood, and then it stays the same. Whatever level of ego development you have at 18 or 20 then stays. But no, there are stages of ego development into adulthood, and that we get through. We can progress through stages of ego development through having disruptive experiences where you think, oh, I didn't notice that, or I didn't see it from that point of view. His research is really interesting that a leader's stage of ego development greatly influences our ability to make sense of complex situations, and therefore make decisions that affect thousands of students, thousands of parents, hundreds of staff. So for me, what does a good leader need? What does a successful leader need? Is an understanding of complexity, an understanding that you can't just press that button to raise attainment there, that there's going to be all sorts of unintended consequences. There's going to be all sorts of kind of near and far cause and effect that we can't possibly imagine. And it's not just a case of, okay, I'm coming in as a leader, I'm going to make everyone use this one PowerPoint, and then we're going to fix reading, or going to just, I'm starting a new school as a leader. I'm going to make my mark by introducing Pobble or whatever it is. So that understanding of that schools are complex places, and you can't just transplant something that has worked somewhere else here, because the problems are probably different, and therefore the solutions are different. I think at the heart of it is leaders' understanding of complexity, their stage of ego development, and at the heart of that, knowing loads of stuff.
Yeah. And I think also when it comes to, I think you've covered it, but I think it also comes to your willingness to be a learner.
Yes.
Because if you think you know everything coming in as a leader, you're going to learn some things that will definitely humble you.
And when I started here at Horizon, the school had been outstanding for several years. Great kind of results, great kind of stakeholder feedback and everything. And I remember thinking, what can I add? What can I add to this? And so I was very deliberate um, in coming into the school of saying to everyone, I just at first, before I even think of doing anything, I need to learn how this school works. I need to learn the history. I need to learn what's worked and what hasn't. I need to learn the reasons for the success that we've had, because I could quite easily inadvertently undo all sorts of success by just coming in and letting my ego get the better of me and trying to implement things that I think work before really understanding the school. And it's only really after about maybe 18 months where I actually probably did anything significantly different to what was already existing. I saw my job as I remember talking to the CEO about this. My job in the first period of time was all about aligning, like me inducting myself into a very successful organization before even thinking about trying to affect any change. Because how can I possibly know what this school needs without spending time understanding it and understanding the people? So I think that's a massive one there, which is to listen first, to watch first, to don't act too quickly. Yes, act if there are safeguarding health and safety issues, but when it comes to kind of those more complex things, just try and understand what's happening first before you go wading in and trying to solve problems with your off the shelf solutions.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's what trips up a lot of people when they go into a school. If I'm honest, like I would not try to take over an outstanding school. My skill set would not be such. I normally, and I just kind of look back at my career, it was mostly going in and fixing things in schools that required improvement. And so to run a school that's already been rated outstanding is a challenge in itself. A lot of people think, oh, it's easier, but I think definitely it's harder. What do you
I,
think?
yeah, this is the first school. This is the first school that I've led that wasn't in trouble as well. So all of the schools that I've been a head of teacher of previously had had rapid improvement required, and so I had to learn quickly as well a change in approach here, because if I'd have done here what I'd done in those other three schools, I'd have been out in 6 weeks. They wouldn't have put up with it. They would have said, "Who's this coming in from England with all these big ideas? We don't need this." So definitely, it is a challenge, and I think it's probably one that isn't spoken about enough, because uh, I have this one colleague from years ago that made a career of turnarounds. He was an interim head teacher after interim head teacher after interim head teacher, because that's what he was really good at. He wasn't there to set the culture for 5, 10 years. He wasn't there to set the vision and see something through. He was there to rescue schools in crisis, stabilize them, and hand it over to someone else who could do that. And I think it's really important that either we specialize in a particular area, or or we learn the different parts, because there's certainly different approaches for different schools. Absolutely, that's part of understanding the complexity of the organization that we lead.
Yeah, we're winding down. We're way over our 30 minutes. If you're commuting and you're listening to this podcast, can you commute twice with it, please? I've got over the 30 minutes, but I knew I would geek out with leadership with Nick, because I do enjoy his writing and the way he thinks about leadership in schools. I wrote recently about fluidity in leadership and classroom, having that fluidity, the ability to move between the two as you like without being seen to be weak because you stepped down from leadership and then taught for a while and then go back into leadership and vice versa. What are your thoughts on that level of fluidity in schools? Should that be normalized?
I have a real problem with recruitment and opportunities because I think if you remove you never remove it completely, but if you remove the boys' club element of who you know and that kind of thing, and look at merit on what someone is capable of, or what they're interested in, what their expertise is in, I think that there would be far more opportunities for people to do what you're describing, which is to 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 sometimes realize that the job you're doing isn't the one you really want to do. So sometimes we have people who step into leadership positions and then realize it's not for them and go back into the classroom and then actually learn and grow and then think, okay, I can do the job much better now because I understand it more. And so I think there's a lot to be said for life experience and the humility involved in recognizing yourself, what you like and what you want and what you're good at and what you're not. And I think um, any good recruitment process will explore that really well because not everyone has the same path. Not everyone goes teacher, middle leader, senior leader. That is a bit of a stereotype. And actually, if I'm looking at a candidate or thinking about a candidate, and it's just a plain sailing rise through the ranks. And thinking, well, what hardships have you been through? What challenging situations have you had? And I think it's our job from a recruitment point of view to make sure we're open to a variety of situations, experiences, and that kind of thing. I think a lot of senior leadership teams are far too homogenous. You've got all people that think and look the same, and leadership is about variety of experiences and expertise and viewpoints. And I think if we search for that, we're far more likely to understand our school much better, because if we've got all people thinking the same thing, we're going to miss stuff. Absolutely, we're going to miss it.
Yeah, which is very, very true, and something that we talk about a lot, but we don't implement. Everybody has this, oh, we want diversity of thoughts, we want diversity of experience, we want diversity in ethnicity, and we want all of that. But the truth is, Nick, they don't really want the thing. It's not true. When it comes to time for appointments, you can see what people really want. It's one thing to say you want something, it's a whole other thing to actually act on that want. All right, quick fire. If you were to meet your, I don't want to call it role model leader, but an iconic leader, whether in or out of education, who would it be and why?
Oh, iconic leader. I grew up watching football in the 90s and the noughties. And so for me, Alex Ferguson, the manager of Manchester United, was long serving, hard, but nurturing. I think that would be an interesting one. Definitely. The longevity and the legacy there is incredible.
Not Arsene Wenger?
No, no, not an Arsenal fan.
Sorry, I had to do that. My husband's an Arsenal fan. I just had to throw that in there. Quick fire. What's one thing school leaders should stop doing now?
Stop doing now. Um, Asking teachers to do things that make no difference to students' learning.
Brilliant. And what should they all start doing? Final question.
Um, what they should start doing,
If they
taking
haven't been.
taking in a wider variety of opinions on things. When you're a school leader or a principal, it's one of those situations where you can quite easily come to believe that the whole world smells of new paint. People behave differently, whether you like it or not, whether they want to or not, they do. And so to widen the perspective by talking to different people and getting the truth, what's really happening in the school, because I think we all have huge blind spots about what's actually happening in the school. We can think it's great, we can think it's running smoothly, but so our leadership is only as good as the information that we're getting on the ground. So seek a wider variety of viewpoints for me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Where can people find you apart from your blog? Where else can people find you?
More LinkedIn posts these days than Twitter. The algorithms now mean that I think that hardly anyone sees anything that happens on Twitter. So I tend to post less there now, more on LinkedIn. But yes, Mr. Nick Hart on LinkedIn. Same with the blog post. With the blog, is where I tend to leave most ideas. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I've stopped posting on Twitter completely. I've like never opened it since it was taken over by X.
No, it's just weird. I went from having like 14,000 followers and so many interactions to posting and nothing, no interactions. It's really weird. So so it's stop bothering.
Yeah. Well, I catch you all on LinkedIn with Nick, and sure we'll meet him somewhere at a conference or pay him a visit at Horizon English School. Thanks for being my guest.
No problem. Thanks, Ethan.